Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on episode 265, I am very lucky to have the two impish ladies of Joan and Jane on the podcast today. They're identical twins, same DNA, different points of view. Former therapist turned psychiatric entertainers. How are you today, ladies?
Oh, we are wonderful. We're wonderful every day, even if it's the worst day ever. You ask us, we're going to say it's wonderful.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, I have to ask,
Sure.
psychiatric entertainers, what is that? It's like,
What is that, Jane? Well, here's the thing. When you're in a profession that at some point you're having a hard time taking it seriously, you've been disciplined a couple of times, you're starting with a point of view. You have a point of view you cannot hide anymore. So you start doing things as if the entire profession has already changed to a different type of treatment when it hasn't. And you leave the profession because you're retired and you're a starving artist. We're writers. And you've got a lot of time to change your point of view. And you know what? It's funny when you look back on your whole life, you either laugh or cry, and it is so much more fun to laugh. And our parents passed away, and then we're through that grieving process where we bring things up and we pee our pants laughing over stuff. And it's wonderful. It's a lot of wisdom that's beginning to soak in. It's just been wonderful.
That was way longer.
Right. So anyway, we laugh and we sometimes laugh till we cry. So, and Joan can bring the humor into any situation. Even when you didn't ask for it, want it, you weren't looking for it. And it's a bizarre intervention that needs to be seen and heard.
So the different story is I never wanted to be a nurse. I never wanted to be a nurse practitioner. I wanted to be a comedian, but I guess as they call it today, I had crippling anxiety. I used to just call it anxiety back then. Or no, it was I wanted that Haji machine that told the future. I just wanted that. But then, yeah, I wanted to be a comedian. Well, actually, I wanted to be a model, but we weren't pretty enough, and our butts were too big in the 70s. And whereas today, you might say, I don't see that at all. Where do you think that is? But in the 70s, it was Cheryl Tiegs, and she had that flat ass, and it's like, wow. So we had butts, and we couldn't be models. Because I wanted to be a coat hanger. And that's a model to me, as a coat hanger. And I didn't have to speak because I was anxious. Anywho, I wanted to be the comedian, couldn't do it. So I followed. Jane was buying shoes and supporting herself. And there were nurses since the 80s, and then therapists. Oh. And when global warming hit, I didn't take it seriously anymore. Jane had a client. He was complaining. He wanted to know Joan's point of view. And he thought I was going to have his back because I usually have the boys' back. And she has the girls back. And I shocked him. I said, you know what? It's going to be water wars in 50 years. And you are complaining about your what? Like whatever, your mother-in-law, your wife, your husband, whoever the fuck you chose to be with. And you're complaining in the house. Okay, thanks. Sorry, that was cynical. Yes, wonderful.
Okay. So who is the laughter? Who is the heart, but who contains the logic?
Oh, unfortunately, I think I have too much logic. I've been compared to Spock on Star Trek. Jane is the one that pulls it off. She's a Wayne Dyer. She pulls wisdom from BC to, what's the other one? AD. What is it? ADD. What is that?
She thinks I'm going to help her out on this one.
Anywho, what Jane does is she will bring things, pull it out of her ass, and she will bring the whole thing together. So for people to understand where we're going, she will come to the point eventually. I'll just sail with another point.
Okay.
Because I have multiple points of view.
Joan is the true comedian, and I'm the wingman for that.
You're the straight person.
The straight person. And when people first get to know us, some might mistake me for the heart. And the more we find out about the style of trauma we had as infants, the more some people say, Jane, I didn't know I should have carried a knife around on me every time I was around you. That
Jane had solitary confinement.
It's the most
upon birth.
Anyway, I'm famous for talking to mothers and fathers who don't yet feel a bond to their infant, and they feel guilty. There's shame in that, where they don't even say that out loud to their friends or even their spouse. You know what I mean? And I'm famous for letting them know how comfortable they should feel, because I had to fake. I was a nurse when I had my son, and I knew better that you will raise a serial killer if you don't bond with that child. And, you know, a pun, it's a pun, but you know what I mean? There's some antisocial behavior that comes out of the lack of bonding. And I was just like, you have to fake it until you make it, and you hopefully fall in love with that child. And that's the most wonderful thing ever.
And that's what every client of mine that had a child, when they were going through that, they would say, you know, Joan, that's wonderful what you're saying, for that you're not being judgmental, but can Jane come in? Because, you know, I didn't have a kid. They'd ask me about disciplining too. It's like, whatever, you know, Google that shit. I don't care about children right now. I do care that in the United States, we're comfortable apparently over time with 20% of poverty, children starving, and we are extremely comfortable with that. And yet we are also comfortable with other people becoming billionaires every day. So there's that topic too. If you want to, I told you I was going to sail. So I'm going to sail to that, because it bothers me, because this country, the United States, does not like children. So what I say is it's women and children, because that's who we eat on our plates every day.
Oh, here we go.
No one eats the bull. No one eats the rooster. Nobody ate the chicken that ran himself to death. The cock, excuse me. Nobody eats the cock. Well, what are you ordering? Cock on the menu, you know? So what our country has chosen, not only women and children, but we have 5 ways in one restaurant for the child to be you know, Veal's a child.
But Italy must have that too, Joan.
Yeah, I'm judging the whole world. There you go. I only have worldly opinions, never a one-on-one. I don't have an opinion if it's one-on-one.
And I think Joan does care about young people, because she cares too much about the environment, and she cares about the animals. And we now have a great nephew.
Okay.
And he's almost 6, and I know she cares.
Oh, I do a little bit.
If he will have water.
I do. I care if anyone is going to have water. Yeah, I want to share. Okay. Because I had to share for this many years with her, including inside our mother. Hello. I mean, talk about knowing how to share. Get over it. That's the other thing in therapy. What, are you kidding me? I had to share a drink with Jane. I had to share the hamburger when I ate meat with Jane. You know, the French fry we had to share. No wonder why we weren't hydrated. I'm drinking this little bit because I was used to having half the soda. So people who can't share, they don't know how to share. I really get over that. Go learn how to do that. Sandbox. All right, moving right along. I think the ship came in to dock.
I don't think the ship's come into dock yet. I think it's got plenty of more sail in it, to say the least. But this is the thing. Okay, there is a myriad of things what can be covered regarding what is being said, because this is the thing which I would find surprising, being a twin. Yes, you talk about sharing. You've had to share everything from pretty much from day dot to basically until you went to college. I don't know if you went to the same colleges or you went to different places. You went to the same college.
Only initially, and that was my fault. I followed. I fully take responsibility for that. I followed Jane. I didn't want to go to school. Remember, I wanted to be the comedian or the coat hanger. I wanted to be a model.
No worries. But like, this is the thing. One of the things I do find surprising, but I do agree with you wholeheartedly, is like, yeah, about parents, like not having that sort of bond or connection. It does surprise me with regards to, and like, this is most really an assumption on my part, that, yeah, being a twin, being so connected, sharing all of that, that a closer emotional tie would not be like that sort of distance from you and your child existed. I might be wrong in saying that, but yeah.
Well, so wait, but we're referring to, we spent 30 days in separate incubators.
Well,
before we even got to meet our mother.
Right. I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about from, like, basically from when you were a parent and not having that connection away with your child. Or am I wrong, completely wrong in saying
that? No, you're correct.
Oh, no, correct. I did not have it.
Yeah, and that DNA comes from our mother. Yes. Yeah, there's a sharing of DNA that this one over here talks about.
I've been fascinated with the mother-child bond with a biological, because when I got pregnant, and the funny thing is I knew I was pregnant like way before a positive test would happen. It was odd. I was positive. A lot stranger than when you're trying to prove a point and you have some scientific evidence or you've got a witness. It was very strange. And one of the largest emotions when a female, this is what I learned in nursing school, one of the most common emotions when a woman is pregnant is ambivalence. Mm-hmm. And they drilled it into my head. I went to a college that was starting to, it was a state college, and they started getting these rebels where they ended those nursing caps where you graduate with a cap. There was no cap. I never had a cap. I actually felt left out. But anyway, they drilled in this ambivalence emotion because in my head, they wanted you to know that you're going to hear everything from soup to nuts, and you better not judge these women because they might not be happy about it. And, in societies, rape might allow you, that ends up in a pregnancy, might allow you to say, I am so unhappy. But you consented to sex. You might be madly in love with this person. They could be your spouse. You guys have money. How dare you be ambivalent, let alone unhappy about it? And so I've been fascinated about that. And then the other thing is I never really felt a physical bond to my mother, our mother.
Ditto.
And I felt a bond to my twin and my father and my older sister also at a distance. But I knew that the DNA in an identical
Remember,
twin,
she was all by herself. Remember that in the incubator?
No, unless you read the book, you don't know that. So as a identical twin, you learn that is one egg that came from a sperm and an egg from mommy and daddy. That's one thing that split in half or sort of in half. And that's the two of us. So we have the exact same DNA.
Yep.
But different fingerprints, which is interesting. And that's all about environmental stuff. And we don't have to go into that bit. But there's always been that wire monkey experiment where they would get the two baby monkeys, because man and woman, we have to do these experiments, so you can't just
leave nature alone.
You can't just observe and ask a couple of questions.
No, you can't.
We have to do a study, and we have to have a lot of innocent animals die for it,
and a bunch of people getting paid for it.
So there's a famous wire monkey. So they have a wire monkey mother with a pillow with some scent of a monkey, Okay. And this baby gets that monkey as the mommy, and this baby's going to get their food and get held by a pillow with a scent. And then they have a real mama monkey with the other baby. And there's, you know, oh, we needed to know. Oh,
look, mothers are actually important.
Interesting. This baby that had the wire monkey is so violent. This is interesting. I mean, go figure. Without nurture, you're not going to get.
There was food involved in that study, and I don't remember, because they went further and thought, well, how about if we decrease the food with the real mom, and the other one, the wire, the one that's hugging a wire, has the good food and water,
amount of
everything.
Proper amount of food.
The one without even less food preferred the real mom. Gee, I guess a mother. We're like, why do we have to do experiments on a mother being important? Like, move the, you know, did cancer get cured yet? Oh, I think it did. Conspiracy theories. Okay. Jane, were you done with the postpartum depression?
I don't know, because I also had postpartum depression, which is another thing you can't even speak of.
Only in front of Tom Cruise.
Because if you speak the weird thoughts you're having, you know, either, well, they, you know, you could get locked up, of course, which I wasn't there yet. I didn't need that. And as a nurse, I knew that.
But it goes to psychosis very quickly.
But it goes to this very, very, very strange stuff that a lot of people are unwilling or unable to admit to because of the shame involved. And in our country, Brooke Shields tried to come out and educate. And Brooke Shields is one of America's sweethearts,
yes,
from the 70s or so and later. And
he's got it.
You know, Tom Cruise humiliated her, and a lot of people agreed. And it was, you know,
and she had a chance to educate. But see, in this country, what we like to do is keep us kind of
isolated,
ignorant, and not knowing. The internet is hilarious for me because I just start laughing when I see one more thing, and it could be about anti-aging that I was told, no, that can never be done. But of course it is being done, and our country can't hide it. It's hilarious. Go ahead.
I was going to say, like you mentioned, like you say, our country, America, can't handle it. But I would say it's more on, like, how can I put it? It's more on trend thing. Like if it's trendy, or if it's like, yeah, popular at that particular time, then all of a sudden people talk about it and like, yeah, it gets pushed like into the limelight. With regards to sort of like, yes, not connecting with a child, postpartum depression and stuff like this, like, yes, same thing with mental health. If it became trendy at a particular moment in time, because, okay, Brooke Shields at the time, she did not have the power of social media or anything like this. And it was
right.
But today, yeah, it is like on trend. And like, okay, I know this is a little bit of a leap, but there was a UFC fighter, Paddy the Baddy, whose friend like basically committed suicide. Like he like got the message at 4 o'clock in the morning, and he dedicated like his victory, I believe, was it last week? I believe it was last week at the UFC. Don't ask me what number.
I saw the clip.
Yeah, but dedicated and went, yeah. That would not have happened, say, 10 years ago, even with social media being around, because it wasn't trendy. It wasn't like trending. It wasn't like out there. I do believe more people will start to have a voice. And I think they are having a voice, talking about like the lack of connection with their child, talking about like postpartum depression. And like, yeah, it just needs people to get involved. I don't think it's just a country thing. I think it's a case of it's an on-trend thing. And one of the things I don't like about on-trend things is because all of a sudden, everybody's got it. Everyone has it. Everyone has a tale and a story to tell. And it just gets washed away in this tsunami of just mass information. And with mass information, you don't often hear the truth because everyone's trying to give their little shine, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, put their point of view forward.
Yeah, right. They're trying to be in the popular crowd.
Absolutely.
Or what's popular, trending. Yeah.
You know, somehow we managed to be in the popular crowd in high school, having been, I know I was pretty silent.
That's because our mother worked in the cafeteria. She was the one serving food during lunch.
Joan, she wouldn't have been revered in that way for popularity.
Yes,
right?
she was, because Jane's forgetting something.
I forgot.
When the poor people came through the line who couldn't afford lunch, our mother had a thing with them, and they would give her 4 quarters and she would give them $1 back, or vice versa. And what was funny is this priest or something that never met our mother spoke at her funeral and said, my goodness, Evelyn was so generous that she put in her own money. And I'm thinking, who told that story? Because I would have told the priest, that was on the state. That was on the town, excuse me.
Yeah.
She was poor people should have been getting food. And instead they were going hungry, and our mother was there. So all those kids that were from the other side of town loved Jane and Joan. That's why, Jane, you didn't know that? Oh, she thought, no, I was wondering why.
Yeah, but Joan, we were in the popular group, the ones that weren't poor.
Yeah, that I don't have. We
That's
were twins. I think people were very fascinated with twins, because when Jane said she was pregnant, I was in another state and I was going to the store. I believe I went back 3 times for the pregnancy test. You know, I started out with maybe a $9 one, then a $12, and then it was a $30 one. And the cashier said, hey, honey, they all work. So I looked up and thought, oh my God, I went to the same cashier. Who does that? Anyway, yeah, I wasn't pregnant, but I had morning sickness and everything. So I had her pregnancy morning sickness. And again, I was not pregnant.
Right. So I have to ask,
Mm-hmm.
You had no sort of need or sort of desire to have kids yourself, or is it just a case of you didn't actually meet the right person at that time?
No, I grew up more like Ted Bundy, and we grew up more like Ted Bundy, and we, you know, threw rocks at cars. We were always by ourselves. We wouldn't speak to the neighbors. But if the firefighters or cops were around, like uniforms, as infants, we were told that if a uniformed person came in, immediately we acted like a regular child, like we were calm. We might have even cooed or something. We chose never to speak until when? We were almost 2. Like, there's no words came out of our mouths. They must have thought, wow, that, and we doubled it. Hey, Mike, we doubled that? Like, oh my God, they must have been frightened to death. We didn't walk. When did we walk?
We didn't walk until we were 18 months. We were what we were, and our mother needed that because to have twins in the 60s, she was not very, she admitted to not being able to, let me back up. We were sick. We almost died. And that's why we were in the incubators for 30 days. After 2 weeks, I was healthy enough to go home. Somebody made a wonderful decision to say, just leave her in for another 2 weeks. When mothers and fathers were not allowed to go in and touch babies yet, they wheeled me off to the side because Joan was having seizures. Joan had a brain tumor, and so she was being poked and prodded a lot. And so we came out with some antisocial personality traits, is what we now know.
Like, I was a licensed nurse practitioner, and I was arrested twice. You know, nothing for nurse practitioner shit that I did wrong, but you know, who goes in with an arrest record? The person that made me feel the best, I was a bit embarrassed. Actually, I wasn't that embarrassed. People Googled me, found out I was arrested, and still were making appointments. And I remember saying to the family, why would you come here? You Googled and just found out I was arrested. And they said, we didn't think you'd judge us. And they were right. I wasn't. That was good. Yeah. So it's helpful, you know.
So both of us did not want children.
Yeah, was that the point?
Our mother also almost died when she was giving birth to us. And so we equated the idea of pregnancy with death.
Nope.
I equated pregnancy with death. And therefore, when I knew that I was pregnant, what I'm doing in this, because I've lived in 2 different states, what I'm doing in the 80s is trying to find out abortion laws because I did not want to be pregnant.
So the question was for me, and I'll answer that, and that's a good topic. But I want to answer while I have it in my brain. Oh my God, I just pointed at Donald Trump. Oh my God.
Go before you forget.
Yeah, was you asked me about the kids thing. So when I grew up, I didn't want to have children. I never wanted children. I didn't want to reproduce myself. I didn't want one of them. I was hypnotized for past life regression.
Mm-hmm.
And on tape, don't worry, I destroyed this because I was going to deny it.
This is by a
I was going to deny this shit.
This is a reputable psychologist who specialized in hypnosis to heal anxiety.
Okay.
And on tape, he asked me what you just asked me, like, what's up? And I actually said, referring to a human being, I said to him, why would I want one of those? I don't know what I said. I said that, but in context, I was told by some people this is impossible. And then I've been told by other people it's totally possible. If you believe in past lives, what has been coming up as a theme of me is I've been an animal a couple of times, but then came back as a human being. That is not supposed to happen. So it's possible that my way overdone, way out of control, should never give Joan a gun was the way people treat animals and the disrespect that I felt with that. But this hypnosis guy really helped. And what happened was in one of those lives, I had a hatred for zoos. So in one of those lives, I was a black panther, the four-legged kind. And I had a litter. So I had to go and get food. So I had the litter set somewhere. I go to get the food. And in particular, I don't know what this is about, Asian men found the litter and they waited for me, captured me, and brought me to a zoo in a past life, if that's true. So on tape, I said, why would I have one of those? They killed my babies, is what I said. And then I destroyed the tape when I was fully conscious and heard that stuff I was saying.
And if nothing else, that makes for a fabulous movie with such underlying themes and layers to the plot and so many more things to talk about.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Interesting. I was going to ask you which animal you came back as, was in your previous life, but I have to ask, what was the arrest for?
The first arrest was for fourth-degree larceny, and that was, we were 18. We chose, we were geniuses. We waited until we were true adults in the system, and then we started stealing. Wonderful career. Either that or we just never got caught previously. Okay. And then the second one was a DUI. Yeah, I got that one.
Right. So yeah. With regards to your rebellious streak, like when I say streak, I think it's the Grand Canyon and then some.
Skid bid.
Well,
you mean skid bid.
Do you assume you get is this purely from your mother, or does your father have this as well? Because, okay, your mother, like, how can I say, giving a 100% refund to the kids she was helping with their meals. I don't like, very noble, and like, you know what I mean, I can get behind that. But yeah, where do you think that comes from, mother or father?
Both. We have so the arrest record, mommy, it was our mother. But that being said, some of the things our father did in the past, if it was witnessed by, or
definitely.
if we had iPhones and we filmed it, it was arrestable behavior.
Oh, yes.
But in terms of
violent,
in terms of a rebel a rebel with a cause is our father. I'm sorry, so did mommy. She was feeding starving children. We had two parents that were such rebels for their society. Our mother, let me just tell you, and she doesn't take the credit for it.
Well, she's dead.
It went back to her father. So we're talking about a man Well, our mother was born in 1931, and I don't know how old her father was, but we're talking now even the early 1900s. Not a racist bone in his body.
Mommy's father.
Yes, our maternal grandfather,
Mm-hmm.
a rebel that even allowed in a white neighborhood in the 40s a black boy to play with his white daughters. I mean, not a racist bone. We were told there was a little bootlegging in that family as well. So we have rebels, we have criminals. Wonderful American, the immigrants, when they came over, it was all our grandparents that came over on the boat. And then on our father's side, our grandfather owned a house, and now it was a shack, but it was a house during the Great Depression. And because he owned a house, he got no state assistance. They were starving.
There were 6 kids and a grandmother.
There was a lot of people starving just because of a technicality. He owned some wood that was put together. There was no indoor bathroom.
No.
It was a shack.
So our mother grew up with no mother. She forgot to say that part. Mm-hmm. So therein lies where she didn't have a mother.
Oh, right.
And again,
antisocial behavior.
People did that experiment too. They took the mother lion or tiger away, and they wondered why the baby grew up to be a fucking up. Like, come on, the mother is important. Even though I complain about mothers, and I'm not for Freud at all. He blames the woman for everything, but every so often the mothers of sons over here over glorify their first boy, and I'm thinking at the expense of everyone else. That I don't get, because I've never had children. So apparently you can't have an opinion if you've never had children. But yeah.
And then what these two rebels did, our mother and father, I want to say what both of them did, was right under our eyes. They changed a cycle of something that you would want different. Our mother, who had no mother, a mother who took off, which is just never spoken of, a mother that had children, 5 of them. There might have been a 6th there, and left.
Bye-bye.
Right? And she never left us.
No.
She did everything to watch. A lot of people did such things. They watched television programs to learn how to be a parent.
Donna Reed, she watched.
Things like that in the 50s and stuff. In the 60s, she did that. So she just changed a whole. Now, she wasn't nurtury, cuddly, because she didn't know how to be.
Right.
She did that. Now, our father stopped 2 cycles of violence. Our paternal grandfather, God bless him, because we really liked sitting next to him. He died when we were maybe 10-ish.
And we were the only 2, so therein lies that antisocial
we
stuff.
We
always went for the criminal.
Yeah.
No, very friendly.
Yeah.
That one over there is very friendly. Okay.
He was an extremely violent man that but took care of his family as best he could. And he used to violently hit the children, do terrible things that would be jailable today, and his wife. For example, when our grandmother was 9 months pregnant with our father, the 9th child, and our grandfather saw starvation happening, couldn't stop having sex, but he saw starvation happening in front of his eyes. He kicked her in the stomach when she was 9 months pregnant. And unforgivable, whatever, we get it. We forgave him immediately before even hearing this story. But what our father did was never laid a hand on our mother ever. He never got in her face. He screamed a lot, but he never got in her face. He never touched her in a violent manner. And that in itself is commendable. But then what he did with his own children was appropriate spanking, whatever was appropriate
that we thought
at the time in the culture.
Yeah.
He didn't even do the worst end of that. And it is amazing that man could do that.
And the gift he gave the family was laughter, because every day, people were belly laughing at 61 Pondell Road. That's all we were doing. And everyone wanted our parents. everyone from high school. And I'm thinking, really? You actually really want that? And some of our aunts, oh my God, you have our baby brother for your father. What's it like having him? And he was the best comedian. That's why I wanted to be one. I wanted to be him. And he had everyone laughing.
He stopped a sexual assault in Korea. He was in the front lines in Korea, saw combat. He saved a whole Canadian troop from, they thought they were Germans, and as well as he witnessed the deaths of his peers from friendly fire. And because he was the fastest runner in the group, was ordered to run into tanks firing at Americans and saying, you are killing your own men. Please stop firing. And our father is a hero in so many ways that all our male cousins in hospice, I didn't even know this because no one bragged. Our father never, well, he bragged. I don't know what, but they all said, you don't understand. Your father taught us how to be men, not our own father. So we were really proud of him when he died. And one of the reasons we wanted to share that particular story is not just honor your father, when I have so many stories of when I hated him as a human being. And I am just so grateful that he did not get dementia until I totally forgave him and loved him.
Yeah.
But why we want to tell people some of these stories, not only for wisdom, but in a cancel culture, both of our parents did things that people might say, you know, they wouldn't want to know them. They would shun them.
Really?
When 90% of their lives, they did wonderful, wonderful things. And that's what I want to say. Every saint has a past and a sinner has a future.
Yeah.
Oh, like this is the thing. I always tend to, like, with regard to cancel culture and things what go on today, people, how can I put it? People have this BS sort of like, okay, mask what they think people should be at this present time. And with that, it tries to remove the simple fact of when, like, they look at the mask and they see this sort of perfect sort of robot human. But the whole thing is, ultimately, we are human. We learn from our mistakes. We are not perfect individuals. Anyone who goes, I'm a perfect individual, I would simply say, you have not actually embraced life in any formal way. Or you live life so cautiously, you may as well be dead. It comes down to, yes, like, okay, you go out there into this big wide world and you will make mistakes. If you can't make mistakes, if you don't make these mistakes, how are you meant to learn? Because if you look at any child who's trying to walk, who's able to walk, they fall down time and time again. I've never witnessed a baby like get to their feet first time and just like go walk. They fall down several times, they make mistakes several times, and you can't, like, if you really like give them an adult mindset, they would quit after like trying to do 100 or so times. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I could be wrong. I might have a lot to learn myself, but that's the way I see it, you know?
No, and I give an example where, thank goodness, when I first became a nurse, because I really didn't want to be one, but I tried to do, really well, but I wasn't doing really well. So my first year, I had 5 major write-ups where, somebody had to go to the bathroom and she convinced me that she was constipated. And I knew other people that were constipated in my life, and it was very uncomfortable. So I let her out of 2 restraints, because back in the early 80s, human beings had to live in restraints, which is illegal now. But the girl was in 4-point restraints and had to go to the bathroom. So I let her go, and I was the nurse, so I had to go with somebody else. And the sitter that was with her at the time got pummeled, basically. She got beaten. So first she quit, and then I got written up for that. And there was a med error. And I don't remember all the other ones. Oh, I didn't search somebody properly before they went into seclusion. Jane's ex-husband was working the night shift, and the guy was in 4-point restraint smoking a cigarette. But on my behalf, I ran it, and I chose a male nurse or a male assistant to search that guy. But of course, I don't know what it's like in Europe. If you're the nurse, it's your fault no matter who did it. You were in charge that day. So I should just search the kid myself. Anyway,
but mistakes happen is the point.
The point is, after these major write-ups, you go for a review. And they gave me a raise. My first year. I'm thinking I'm fired. I tried Jane. I just couldn't do it. Like, oh my God. They gave me a raise. And I thought, why would you ever do that? And the director of nursing said, Joan, you never made the same mistake twice. That showed growth. Today, before I left nursing and became a nurse practitioner, today I saw at least 3 people walked out by security for a mistake. Nurses can't even learn anymore. I don't even believe nurses are being honest anymore, because if you make a mistake, that's your livelihood. So Yale New Haven Hospital has anonymous reports of mistakes now, because they knew no one was reporting it, but they need to know how to improve the hospital. So human beings aren't comfortable speaking anymore. So it's too bad.
Which also goes into cancel culture, because it's not now, and of course the cancel culture brought out some things that needed to be brought out, obviously. But, we just saw a comedian, and I guess, there's an attack on John Wayne, who was an actor, American actor from the 30s. Or a better example was, there was a chef who, she's still living, I don't know her name, and she, a white woman from the South, a lot older, grew up with some active racism, and she said something on her cooking show, and they cancel her instead of teaching. Joan and I are huge on the idea that discipline is basically teaching. And I am from I don't like hands-on spanking. I chose the timeout part with my son, and I noticed, some of it was too much guilt. You give a lot more guilt with that, I think, or, weird. But in basic discipline should be teaching. When a child touches the hot stove and the parent grabs them abruptly and says, no, you're saying with that stern voice, the next time that kid hears no, they might stop, because warning, there's some danger. But to use discipline as a new front for public hangings.
Jane calls it the DUI of healthcare.
Or a new there's DUIs in healthcare. What used to be discipline was teaching. We're now, I don't even know what they're calling it. They have a
hanging list,
a disciplinary action of some kind. Now, what I love about it is there's a huge fine. So now you've done something wrong. It has to be recognized and adjusted, but you have to pay a lot of money.
There's a doctor right now, his fine was $10,000 for his mistake.
Wow. So, it's going in a direction that's punitive, when, let's remember, discipline is teaching. Yeah. It did not have to be punitive. When we were nurses, one quick story, when we were nurses,
are you sure?
A lot younger, and I know I was a lot better looking. My body was terrific, shall I say. And a psychiatric patient or a staff member, but normally it was the inpatient, who might say something totally inappropriate or start masturbating right in front of you, okay?
That's if they didn't get their meds and they were symptomatic.
It was a symptomatic person, okay? We didn't treat that human being with cancel culture. We treated them with respect. And immediately, if that person could understand words at that moment, Eric, when a another human being walks in the room and you're masturbating, you need to cover up, at least in this hospital, while you're here. Boom, we just taught somebody something.
I'm sorry.
We didn't shame them further.
Mm-hmm.
And there's thousands of these stories. Okay.
Yeah, but like, this is the thing. Like, okay, council culture, discipline. Now, they're like, basically, when you mention a child touching a hot stove, now that's not discipline, that's education. And like, this is the thing. There is a lot of things where I would say people are not getting educated on, because it sometimes it covers a hard subject. It covers hard subject matters. It covers, like, look, what happened, like, with people back then. Okay, this is the thing. We look back in the past and we go, they lived in barbaric times, which, if you lived in that moment in time, it would be quite civilized. Look, when I was in my 20s, in the 90s, I lived in civilized times. And like, yeah, for example, if you take a look at Friends, the TV show, right? That is considered barbaric to some people, with the way it talks about people, fat shaming, race, and everything like this. And you go, right, sat there, laughed about it quite a lot. And like, I watched Friends today and I'd see nothing wrong with it. But we live in an age where, okay, it comes around, I would say maybe every 50 years. Like, there was McCarthy back in the day. And like, you know what I mean? If you went back, there was most probably another period of time. But if you went back far enough, Salem. It's not about education. It's not about discipline. It's about punishment. If we can punish you for speaking or like stepping out of line, which we like, whatever the quote unquote social norms are at the time. Yeah. But like, with that punishment, like, okay, people can't get educated from their mistakes. People can't get educated from, like, basically needing to have conversations, painful conversations, especially in this day and age, more so, because yeah, that looming presence of punishment, like taking away your livelihood, your kids, your, like, basically everything what can make you, stripping it down and ostracizing you in today's society. It's very it is frightening, it's terrifying, and it is sickening in many respects, because look, no one should like live in fear for what they like say. Like, if they say a wrong thing, like, yeah, have the discussion. Like, they might see a new point of view, they might go, like, they might descend more into the realm of ignorance. But as long as they can have that discussion, as long as they can have those words, other people see this and can become better from it, you know?
Yes, absolutely. Because I'm trying to, the person I'm talking about is dead now, but one of my best friends in America used to be African American, and he's still, and yeah, what he went through was, what was that? I'm so sorry. What was the question? There was no question. I was going to add to it, and it was about Winslow, Jane. Does it make sense here? What's the story? The story is what he just said.
Punishment.
Oh, right. So and most of my Black friends of today, in fact, I've never heard one of my Black friends or Black strangers that was a client say, they've 100% have said, if I prefer white people from the South. Now, you hear that in America and you're thinking, why would you prefer that? That it's worse. Civil rights seem to be worse in the South. Because, Joan, it is out in the open, and I know what I'm dealing with. Cancel culture puts it back in the closet where you don't know who has your back anymore. So it might be different geographically elsewhere, but that's what I'm going
in certain parts of America, it's probably the whole country now, because of everybody's growing up on cell phones, etc. Is we are beginning to, we've been doing this for a while, the breakdown of society, the helpful kind, of a community is breaking down to the point where people are not, I mean, there's a lot of people that see it. I hope more people will see when discipline is punishment and it's not teaching, we are beginning to model after the American prison system. When you have a DUI that now, or a discipline in your own medical field, you know, of thousands of dollars, and then you have classes or you have supervision, and if it goes the way it was intended, which is some kind of community program, that's wonderful. But when you have humans running it and everybody's at a different level and it's too easy to go the punitive route, we're going. So here's the joke from Bill Burr, I think it is, or I'm sorry, or did I say it? Based on humor I just recently heard, if you're not a sociopath on your way into prison in the US, we will make sure you are a sociopath when you leave. We don't want reform, diversion. We did. So in name, so many places with wonderful intentions are trying to fix this problem, but instead they're not going after the dollar. They're going after programs where you're going to get a lot of flawed humans in there doing things that no one's nurtured anymore. Like I said, it's technology. We're headed into AI and, you know, the robots. We're not headed into more nurturing. That's AI. Artificial intelligence. You know, and computers. Sorry. We're not into nurturing anymore.
Oh boy. And they say children are resilient, but you won't like the results. Sorry. You know, we're very resilient. We are, but we do grow up into, you know, maybe not Ted Bundy, but there's some serious stuff going on. The body keeps the score. Here we go again. We have a book out too, How to Calm the Fuck Down or something like that. But the body keeps the score, explains it.
Yes.
You know, that body's going to keep the score.
It's brilliant. I only just started reading it.
It's on trauma and PTSD.
It's the #1 bestseller for PTSD.
Which is wonderful because I never heard of it in school.
By a brilliant man, and I'll say his name wrong.
No, you won't.
Bessel van der Kolk. And the more we know about it, it's amazing how he describes early childhood trauma and how that really
doesn't go well.
What is needed to be treated, rather than waiting for everybody to grow up and then say, "Hey, we need more help with mental health. Come on now, we need more therapists." When you know what I learned, Joan's going to agree with me. What we learned, because we went to school at different times, but we learned that group therapy was the best therapy out there. It was the best and fastest way to change.
Try to get paid.
Try to get group therapy.
Unbelievable.
At least where we're from, it's just a nightmare. You're blocked.
Yeah. May I ask, why is group therapy better than, say, individual one-on-one therapy?
Yeah, Jane.
It simply put, it mimics a community, and human beings are social creatures requiring a herd. We are not the one that, I don't know what animal you want to say, that travels alone. We are not the loner. We're the dogs, the wolves. We need a pack, and without it, we become violent little entities
trying to survive.
And group therapy
is the agent of change
because it mimics a community and you have a lot of members. And when it's run well, it's run by the group. It's the leader of the group, which should be the facilitator. And in many groups, the leader of the group is a peer that suffers from the same issues, and then just runs it like an AA meeting as like a facilitator is what I mean. So anyway, individual therapy is wonderful for brief periods of time. It was considered to be a in vogue thing for wealthy people years ago. Oh, my therapist. I called my therapist. My therapist told me, that's a lot of fun in an egocentric environment, town, lifestyle. It's a lot of fun. And then, but really what human beings are all about is a community, and every movie has to show you that that's what we are. And then 9/11 happens, we become a community, and then a week later we are not anymore. So that's that. Yeah. Community, what she said.
Now I have to ask, like, with regards to the sort of realm of community, like, okay, look, you guys have like seen a few things, like been rebellious and, like, you know what I mean, thrown a rock here and there, and like, yes, like, yeah, built families and great friendships along the way. So with regards to the realms of community, what would you say needs to be done to encourage community growth, or to initiate a community proper?
I'm gonna say the way it used to be. So, well, there's two things: a community in your home, not your career. In your home, police are walking. You know everyone's names. If somebody gets in trouble, they get away with it the first time. If somebody didn't die anyway, because you know you want to learn and help people. If somebody doesn't have food, everybody knows it, so you bring food and stuff like that. But within a system, I want to say the community I felt as a new nurse in 1984, that the staff that were there not only gave me a raise that I told you, they gave me, I think, 5 days off for the Christmas holiday. Jane told me as a new nurse, one, you're going to work the night shift, Joan, and you won't get any holidays off. I was prepared for that. So I was so blown away that I was working the day and evening shift, no nights, and I was getting all this time off. And one of the staff members said, they chuckled. I kept saying, well, how are you being so nice to me? And they said, Joan, we're all Jewish. I thought, what? I thought you were all Italian, first of all, because that's what I was.
We're Italian.
But because you were treating me like a family, I thought this was wonderful. But yeah, so that community turned into fantastic care for the residents of the inpatient psychiatric hospital that on average stayed years back then. They say 10 months back in this book, but I was there, and for the first 3 years, I had the same primary patient, the one in 4 Points. I mean, she was there for 3 years, liar. Anyway, we were good to those clients. We took them out to eat. We taught them how to order and take the bus and go on a ski trip and learn how to talk to a stranger or get gas. We did all those things, and we got paid for it. As soon as the 87 or 8, when the business model took over, I remember as a nurse even going to a big meeting, Dr. G, business model, whatever, is taking over. And how does that change? Well, there's no longer a community in healthcare. It's a revolving door.
They cut all those wonderful services.
All those programs gone.
Except in cancer centers, they can't. I think it's because they have to maintain, there's maybe a more of a worldly view on cancer treatment. Thank goodness for everyone who fought for that right, because our father was hospitalized in different surgical floors, medical floors. It was a horrible experience almost every single time. And one of his last hospitalizations, he landed in in the Yale Smilo Cancer Center, and I was struck by the different philosophy of there was pet therapy, there was a social worker right away that wasn't judging, and our dad in the end with dementia had to be restrained with every hospitalization. And I'm talking, he was in a medical setting for his Crohn's disease, but because of dementia, had to be physically restrained every time. And at Smilo, and it happened that I'm the middle child, so I'm staying overnight saying, to the universe, maybe mommy and daddy love me more now.
She's a micro middle child.
I have a chip on my shoulder.
2 minutes older, and she happens to land in the middle.
I happen to have had a chip on my shoulder, so I happen to be spending the night and witnessing, trying to make these restraints a little more humane. I knew it was happening because you couldn't avoid it. Smilo, the security treated him with so much respect that I barely had to leave the room, because you always leave the room because you know the next day you're going to see all the black and blues all over your father's arms, etc., you know, from the restraining. Mm-hmm. But anyway, the cancer center was beautiful. And one of the things I wanted to add to Joan's beautifully mentioning, we need a community again. And I'm going to admit to it myself. I do have a child, and I divorced when my son was, well, when I got pregnant, I pretty much said, Jim, I'm going to stay with you. I'm going to stay with you. You got to help me during this, because neither of us want a child. But I'm too old and I'm a nurse. I'm not aborting. I have aborted. I don't want anyone to think that I'm holier than thou, but I, at that time, chose to keep an unwanted pregnancy. And I stayed with him until I felt like I was on my feet and could go down and be with my mother and father and Joan, etc., for help with babysitting. So my son's from what's called a broken home in America. And what we did was we had too many people obviously staying in a marriage that they were unhappy. And then we had an entire decade or more, how many decades of divorce, breaking of community and hatred over it, no tolerance of any other human being in this thing. And now what we see, at least in our little circle, is people trying to stay together, which is lovely.
And
I couldn't do it.
And having the talk in case they aren't together so they can parent effectively. That wasn't talked about when we were younger.
Because what I think they all witnessed, if my hatred, which I love my ex-husband now, but back in the day when we were not, I don't know how he felt about me during that time. My son grew up, I guess, thinking I hated his father. And therefore, I imagine it, maybe 50% of divorced people, children may have been witnessing a similar thing. So if the hatred is within your own little nuclear family that just busticated, how is there going to be a community of people coming together when you couldn't even do it? The mother and father couldn't even do it.
But that's not to shame them.
No.
Who could do that?
And discipline is learning.
Yeah.
And I want to say pre-cancel culture, when you could call people fat or you could call people this, if I didn't have my coworkers, nurses, psych assistants, people that were bachelors prepared in other fields, cleaning staff that people revered, talking to and getting to know, if I didn't have these people saying things to me very bluntly, I wouldn't have been at least the good enough parent that my son says I am. If people weren't allowed to say anything.
What did they say? What are you talking about?
I had one person say to me, I have a son, right? One lady said, she's a former nurse manager. And she said to me, Jane, Adam's going to start one of these days. He's going to remind you of Jim. And I'm going to kick your ass if I hear anything from anyone that says you treated Adam like Jim or something like that. I was grateful.
Oh, yeah.
There was a guy that said to me, what are you going to do? Be a guilty parent for the rest of your life? I went, what? You know, I've had people say a lot of things.
One thing about Jane, she can take feedback. Not from me, but she can take feedback from others. She really can, I think.
I played Truth or Dare, and I chose truth. And the guy who I thought was my friend said, Jane, how many guys have you slept with?
And at the time
it was 13. And you know what?
What's that?
I think he thought it was a lot. And I didn't. But anyway.
No, he thought you had more.
Oh, that's right. He was judging me. He said, I would have thought that number was a lot higher. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
I know.
Oh, well.
But community is really good. Other than that, community is really good.
Well, like, this is the thing. I would say community. How can I put it? like with regards to, okay, when it comes to our workplaces and everything like this, I think the world has got a little bit, well, it's been a little bit too corporate for a long time, with that sort of corporate edge. Like a corporation, which in very legal terms is considered an entity which is alive, but it's a very sort of cold, lizard-like entity, which doesn't really take a look at the humanity of anything. It always looks at the bottom line. Like, and so, you know, I mean, people can go, yes, there's the like fall of community. It's all down to corporations. But like the whole thing is, I would also say it is also down to us, because in many respects, rather than sort of take the harder road, which like you need to do sometimes to build a community, like we can like take that easy way out. And I think a lot of people for a long time, and it's not looking like people have taken that responsibility in today's society even more so. They go with the easy outs because, to sort of build something, to sort of get something, it's today, I can sit here and I can get everything I want in an instant food, instant like clothes, products. If I if I wasn't with my lady, instant like relationship gratification without actually going anywhere. But these are the things which should be a little bit more difficult. These are the things which should be earned a little bit more. And people might listen to me saying that, go, what, like, but no, it should be easier. No, like if you really want to build something what lasts, there is a time, effort, what goes into it. There is like, it adds to the quality, you know?
Absolutely. And this, I think, is the perfect time to mention our book that we are what are we doing?
We republished it. We wanted to get away from the first publisher and publish it elsewhere. So it's being republished.
We republished it, and what we're trying to do, because we're not good marketers, but what we believe is right now, because people need a community again, but like you said, I mean, it starts with the man in the mirror. And so what we did was we got to a point in our little family here relationship. So it happens to be identical twins. We got to the point where I felt hate towards Joan, and which I was happy about, though. I was so happy that I could hate someone because that meant that I knew love somewhere. You know, going to school, you become a therapist. We were prescribers too, but like that didn't go well for me at all. But I mean, it did for a little while, but then it didn't go well at all. That's another story. It had to do with disciplining. We did bring some of that up, but I paid attention in therapy, and I paid attention to my mentor at the time. Had studied psychoanalysis, so I was getting all that deep, fun stuff, right? That and $3.50 gets you a good cup of coffee, but it was fun to know it, right? Or to think you knew it. But the fact that we got to such real hate, like I said, for me, writing the book for us was a healing journey.
I don't like that.
We don't like that word journey. Voyage, unless it's a band, right?
We like journey. Yeah.
So we had this little trek, a little hike, a little voyage. But anyway, what it did was it helped us get along. So and it's definitely a lot simpler than people are willing to admit. It's definitely not easy. It's not easy.
It is not.
But it is a little simpler than people are willing to admit. Because if you can't get along with your own blood relative that happened to come by as an egg that was split in half, and you can't get over the fact that your differences are only because you lived a few miles away and you had from each other the environmental factors of mommy versus daddy, and you can't even see the other person's point of view
with the same DNA.
How are you going to see the another person's point of view? That's your spouse, that's your boss, that's your coworker. It was, you know, so what we thought we could help with is just to start with, how do you help people change just that little bit? Because I am lazy. I know Joan loves the sloth.
I don't say lazy. I'm resting. I'm that, and I'm the cat, right? The big cat every 3 days eats and rests the rest of the time.
And what our tiny, tiny, tiny little book offers is some funny stories to show you that we're human, and then to show you how we worked through it. And I'm telling you, the reward of a little bit more loving relationship that adds humor. Remember, every lady says, marry the guy. You got 2 guys. It narrowed it down to 2 guys. Marry the one that makes you laugh. Marry the one that makes you laugh.
And at the time, they didn't even know that was healing.
Yeah, because laughter is the best medicine, and it is a way to healing. And
Harvard's starting to write about it.
Yeah. And so anyway, it's a real short book.
Therefore, it must be true. Yeah, right. But I'll tell you, I was looking at it the other day. Depression, anxiety. We both think that it all comes from trauma. And we agree with that, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk as well. But when you have that type of trauma, so good thing Jane had the solitary confinement type trauma. If you have the type of trauma that you become more lizard-like, I think you mentioned a lizard. Unfortunately, with certain types of trauma, that lizard brain, it's called the amygdala, that takes over. So reading that book, it did make me cry because I didn't see who I was. People were afraid of me, but I thought, you are not. You're just lying to me. Why would you be afraid of me? I'm a stick figure. I look like olive oil. How could you be afraid of me? But the words that used to come out of my mouth, even my husband at the time, he used to get in his car and go. He just left. He never even told me he was leaving. And then, you know, I didn't have anybody left. I had no one liked me. At work, they loved me. Everyone at work loved me. But my whole family, no one liked me. So reading his book, it made me realize that all that hard work I did, the easier part of it was his book. It was almost like having a stroke. I was stuttering, and he explains that too. He explains it. So what I want to say is, if you suffer from trauma, hopefully there's another member of your family that will move that, because the crocodile's unable to do this compassionate thing. We're wired. There's no compassion in crocodile lane.
And herein lies the proof that I not only had the ability to experience love, I could experience compassion. I think she's going with this.
She experienced compassion and saved my life. What she did was she started treating me differently. I'm waiting for her condescending fucking remark so I can fire back, and instead she was nice to me, and I thought, that's a trick too. I'm not falling for it yet. But anyway, over time, if you change the way you speak to somebody, they're going to change the way they speak to you. And she made me human again. You know, I have no friends, but the friends I have are, you know, my two. I'm with Moby, the musician Moby. He said his 2 best friends are his 2 exes. Yeah, my ex-husband and my ex-boyfriend. There were others. Those 2 are my best friends. They are my best. I speak every day to one or the other.
Yeah.
Anywho, Jane helped me because she viewed me through compassionate eyes. So that is a big lesson. To get the community back, we all have to start viewing the other person with compassionate eyes, because Jane always widens the lens, and she widens it to horizontal violence. We're all in the same boat. There's a big body that's keeping us down. First, of course, in our country, it's Black people. Then they fight amongst themselves. And in our day and age, they don't want to get better. Like, what? What did you just say? Oh, they didn't want to. Oh, okay, right to. It's horizontal violence. You keep women down. We're cat fighting. Okay, my ex-husband thinks that it's still an evolutionary thing, and I'm not convinced yet why we cat fight amongst ourselves as women. Because I never had a baby. He kept saying it, saying, you have a fucking baby.
Yeah, whatever. Once you have a baby, and even if the motive is you're living in a time where babies are just more farmers working the field. And there was that time, obviously, where children were not revered, but they were workers.
I'm joking.
Right? But even if you're from that time, there is something about that. Now science obviously can explain it through the transfer of DNA, but there is a connection with a baby, whether you gave the birth biologically or you were caring for these cute little things, right? The human thing to do is to kill for that thing. So obviously women might have that one.
Oh, there comes the backstabbing. You know, you ever hear that? Oh, there's a lot of backstabbers over there, Joan, and they're doing that. Who's that? Psycho does that in the movie. Yeah. And I was told that before I started working with a bunch of females, and I thought, oh, they're backstabbers.
And the one thing, if I could go back to compassion, the day I chose to start viewing Joan, I knew there needed to be a change, and I had people around me helping me, friends, family. I went for this thing called Reiki and energy healing. I would have tried anything, right? So there were people that helped me to make this decision that I'm going to start viewing my sister through compassionate eyes, which means I'm not going to talk to her. Well, of course, change is slow. I mean, if I got that once a day being kinder than you know what I mean? For 30 seconds, I was a little kinder. But the point is remember, it was pure hate for me at that time. Which then, remember, I thought, this is a good sign. I can love, whether it was I've loved that. There was one cat I loved a little more than other cats. And then my child, I learned to love this human being who was probably around 10 at the time. So I had this validation I could love. So I choose to view her through compassionate eyes. I did not feel compassionate towards her at the time of beginning of this activity of mine. That's where fake it till you make it. Those were profound words in AA. What that's referring to is pretend you aren't craving a drink or heroin. Fake it till you're able to not crave is one of the things. But I'm using it, which, you know what, my AA former clients are probably saying, Jane, you really don't know a lot about AA. It's exactly what you're talking about. I mean, it might be, but that's what I'm talking about, is people can make changes in their life by simply pretending, which is one of the things Joan likes to talk about when people start chanting cognitive behavioral therapy or positive affirmations.
Yeah, because I didn't know they were lies. Yeah.
To answer your question, Joan, it's not a case of being stumped. I think I've come to a realization, which I never sort of really thought of before. Now, this is the thing. Okay. People have inner reflections, and basically they reflect on who they might be if they're sort of trying to work themselves out and go on that sort of personal journey to make themselves better. And the voices what come from that sort of personal journey when you stare into an abyss might not be the best voices, or if you had a person out around saying that to you in the physical, you most probably, you're not going to be quite happy with that person. But you two being identical twins, as well as having that sort of inner monologue, having that self-reflection, trying to improve yourselves on a day-to-day basis, you have a physical manifestation of that person who's talking. And because you're very different people, you're that's in your face on a regular basis. So I can understand where, yes, the friction comes into it, where other people just deal with themselves. You're having to deal with, technically, 4 people at once.
People should cut us some slack, us twins out there, huh? Yeah. You know what, twins, I think we need to be the new protected group, because there's an oddity to twins that I don't know if other twins share it. We've had a few interactions with twins that seem to, but it's odd.
You know, we have been countless times people have been in a restaurant with us and we're not even aware of it, but we're both picking up our food at the same time. Then we don't even put the fork down. I guess that's odd. And we pick the coffee cup or teacup up at the same time. We do that quite a bit and finish each other's sentences.
Yeah.
And ESP, you know, the whole thing. I'm sorry, Jane was thinking they separated us into 2 rooms at college. Certainly not the teachers. It was the people we were hanging out with, not the other students. There were 2 professional pool players and this guy named Dimitri, which no one really knew what he did. He said he was in music, but I don't recall. But he separated us in 2 rooms. Ladies, don't do that today. That could be rape. Don't do it. But he separated us, and then Jane had to pull cards out of a deck, and I had to guess them. And 9 times in a row, I got the card correct, what she was thinking. So there lies in my problem, because I knew what she was thinking. I didn't feel like she knew what I was thinking. And I was wondering why she was disagreeing with me on that point. I was like, wow. But anyway, it was a real big struggle. Our mother helped me. Sorry, Jane. She was the younger twin. So anytime I went to my mother with a problem, she solved it for me as the younger twin. She had a face that lit up when I went in the room. So I was very lucky. She didn't hug. Don't get me wrong. There was no hugging going on. At least Bill Burr talks about it as 2 parking meters finally came alive. Well, I didn't have that as much as you did, Bill. But our father was extremely loving. Anyway, again, I don't know where this was going. The point. Be nicer to each other.
You know what? I was going to go to a point where, you know how things, I think one of us mentioned cyclical, and you know, Friends, the show Friends is not acceptable anymore. I rewatched a few years ago, I rewatched all of Seinfeld around the same time period. And I was struck. I mean, don't get me wrong. I laughed. I was all by myself. I laughed so hard. It was wonderful. And I thought, and I was talking about it with my son, who he had watched it previously. And we were talking about how so much of it was not politically correct.
Right.
The way they spoke to each other. And Elaine, the way she would shove people, it was so much fun to watch her. Anyway, it was like, so we grew up during these times. So what I'm going to tell you was totally appropriate for the grown-ups around us. And I do not know if this is what twins today are going through, whether they're identical or fraternal. What we went through was this public voting system of, it starts out, which twin came out first, which twin weighed more. Okay, so
which one's the evil one?
Who's the evil twin? Who's the fat twin? Who's the smart twin? Who's the pretty twin? Which twin has the better ass? What twin? The micromanaging of our physicality, not only in our who's the calm one? Unbelievable. So you said something about
who's better in bed,
which one was so fat shaming. I chuckled in my head because I was called the fat twin since as long as I could remember, because I was the fat twin even before birth, because there was a stronger twin so I weighed a half a pound more. And I always have this joke about, thank God, eating disorders they were there, but not in vogue yet.
No.
There was one girl that I knew of in high school. Now, little did I know that I meet the full criteria for binge eating disorder.
But you know now.
I know now, but I know that, I mean, and then I used to call my mother saying, you know, Ma, I really don't think I look fat in this outfit. And she would shake her head, not knowing what to say. Like, Jane, you're not fat. And
you're actually skinny.
You know, it was the weirdest thing. And so with Seinfeld and Friends and Communities, I think that there has to be a balance. Because if you can't, you know how 2 guys would talk to each other? No, for example, you tell me if this is correct. The men I know would tell this story. In fact, one did. So 2 guys, they could be twin guys. All right. I'm changing it a little. And
Don't say twins. They had that. The boys came up to me in California. Don't say twins.
Don't say twins.
So the hitting.
Is so two brothers. They just the
friends.
Somebody comes in and says, "Hey, how many pens did you get or votes did you get?" And the twins, one got 29 and one got 30 votes. The one that got 29 votes looks at the other like, dude, how did that happen? And the one that got the one extra vote is, I've always told you people like me better than you. That is a funny thing between two guys.
But girls can't do that. They get stabbed if they do that.
Girls have to be a lot more careful how they do it all. And all of that gets to be, it goes too far, right? But it's gone too far. It's right now, I see it. It's just so far that no one knows how to speak to anybody. I understand men are having a hard time because we had so many people with the cancel culture that had showed private parts, perverts, sexual predators. And now some men are like, I don't know how to talk to a woman at all. I don't know. Well, if we could get to a culture that doesn't cancel everybody and then once in a while can say, hey, Eric, when I walk in the room, your dick should be in your pants, zipped up and belted. Done. And have another person say, agreed. Boom, you've just taught people. Now say, now can we go for lunch? Instead of, you now don't have a peer group. The end.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's what we do, is we take people and we shun them. What they used to do in the olden days, where they made, is it Cersei or Sansa in Game of Thrones, the one that has to walk naked?
No, it's Cersei.
Cersei. She has to walk naked. She's got to be shamed for what she has done. We're doing that with the simplest of mistakes. This has gone a tad too far, in our opinion.
Yeah. Because me, I guess I wouldn't have been a nurse anymore. You would have lost me back then. In the 80s, I'd have to choose a different profession. Whatever. Wow, it's getting.
Anyway, there's some very funny stories in our very, very brief book. They say it's 50-something pages. It's so not.
Some are blank.
Think about the blank pages, the page that has to have the ISBN number and the title.
It's a real ADHD-friendly book.
Don't worry. And then when you get to the little things that might help you in your journey, most of them are real easy.
And funny.
And funny.
And the thing about laughter, I don't think we said this yet. When you have an emotion, you pretty much, the scientists, you can figure out where in the brain that emotion is coming from. The lizard-like emotions come from the amygdala. We know that that's not a good place to be. And most people who have PTSD untreated can have lizard-like qualities. Isolation, you bite and ask questions later, or shoot to kill and ask questions later. It isn't a community thing. You're very isolative and snappy. But if you have the community, you can break that snake down. So if, say, you have a happy feeling, maybe it's in your frontal lobe. You're depressed, it might be in a different section of that lobe. Laughter has no boundary. They can't even figure out where it goes. That's how much of your brain it occupies. When you're laughing, to the point, you won't have pain during those few seconds of laughter, because it's disarming.
Yeah, think about it. When someone makes you laugh, it's like a sneeze. You can't hold it in. You cannot.
You can try.
You can try, right? But it is like an act of nature that does something positive head to toe inside your body. Not to mention, you throw that rock in a pond and you get that ripple effect. Not to mention the people you're going to affect. When Joan talks about when our mother, her face lit up when Joan walked in a room. Mm-hmm. And I believe truly that because our father had that, our father was also a comedian.
Always.
Joan isn't, I have a sense of humor. Our sister Lori has a sense of humor. Mm. Joan has a comedian sense of humor. Mm. And our mother married the comedian. So of course, when she saw the comedy in Joan, it was her And not to mention she survived, and it was a wicked seizure disorder, all this caused by a brain tumor and all of that. But when I walked in the room, it was a little more boring. It was, it was boring.
Wow.
I'm so sorry.
You know what? It was either Chandler. It was one of the guys in Friends, because they were more boring. The girls were for me, the girls are so funny and wonderful. Yeah, and maybe it was like Newman on Seinfeld. Like, Newman, all right, I'm gonna listen to you now. Go back to Newman. I don't want to see Newman. Or Elaine's boss, Mr. Peterson, or whatever.
We haven't seen it.
I was that boring, because you know what I was gonna do? I was gonna point out to you why you should be next in the public hanging, because you spanked me after I spilled a gallon of milk. And you should be tarred, feathered, shunned, and blah, blah. Because back then I was very rigid in my thinking, and I couldn't open up that lens and see that, first of all, he never made a mark, and there was no marks on me. And now I understand that when I picked up a whole gallon of milk, spilled the whole gallon of milk, my father saw dollar signs, dollar bills going down the drain. He was overwhelmed, trying to keep us in a middle class environment, because he grew up in poverty. And so anyway.
And he didn't have anything after the 8th grade. He finally quit. And our mother too, she had no mother. I think at 14, she had to quit high school and take care of blind men.
Mm.
Yeah.
If Joan and I can help people get along, if we can help a few people learn how to get along, we still have not made a dent in the world changes that our parents did in the community of their home and a little outward. I mean, it's a lot to live up to. Neither one of them graduated high school. The amazing people they became, the wisdom, it was amazing, just amazing. And I didn't like them. Ha ha. I do now.
Everybody else did.
Yeah. What I would simply say is this: like, your parents helped their community in their way, and never get into the game of comparison, because that will rob you of all your joy in this world and the next. So what I would simply say is, like, do what you guys do, and help the world, help your community, help the world in your own way. And I'm sure both of you will make an impact of a significant amount. I'm going to ask this last question because, hey, you guys, what is the last thing, what gave you gratitude for where you are in your life today?
For me, the gratitude that I had, that I came into this world with another human being to take me through my whole life. And I did things first, don't get me wrong. I had sex first. I probably should have had her have sex first and teach me, because that didn't go well. But everything else, I was so grateful for my family. My father made me laugh. My mother was the younger twin, got me out of all those altercations. My older twin taught me how to do everything. And then my sister Lori was like Dorothy. And even though I don't like that movie at all, I hate The Wizard of Oz, Lori had all the serotonin of the world into her beautiful face and her big doll eyes. And she constantly, because I was very negative, I would ignite if I went into a church. No way, I wouldn't do mushrooms because Bill Burr just said Satan came up. I know that will happen to me. I don't want any of that. But I've worked hard enough for my gratitude, and I feel horrible for people who don't have the breaks that I have been given, especially because of this one. And I never understood why people said, she's not your friend, she's your sister. Like, what? That's my friend. That's more than my friend. So there. Anyway, that's what I'm just grateful for everyone in my life that was so kind to me. Jane, sorry, I took everybody.
No, it's okay. I'm just going to make it short because I am the person that I was in my 40s, I believe, when my friend said to me, have you ever considered being grateful for what you have as opposed to complaining about everything you don't have or everything that's been done to you? And at the time, my self-hatred, she and I were smoking cigarettes on a balcony, and it was only the second floor. And she's tinier than me. I'm 5'9", and she's probably 5'4". I wanted to pick her up and throw her right off the balcony for saying such a thing to me. And like I said, I am the type of person that apparently does better if somebody confronts me on something. You know, I do better. So I started,
we'll remember that.
So I started practicing gratitude because I was not grateful. And the thing that, how I practiced and the thing that made me the happiest was the people that stood by my side, which is mostly my blood relatives, a couple of girlfriends, my ex-husband, and so many other people who would stick with me when I was so hateful. And what I feel is that I could not heal to where I feel I am today. I would not have been able to heal, and I would not have been able to go through the stress of choosing retirement over the Department of Public Health. The deal is you surrender your license. You're not really a criminal. We don't like what you did, though. Surrender your license. Criminals in the field go to jail. And they got me anyway. I retired, and hadn't done anything wrong. Yeah, that was, and then they got me on a technicality because I'm not that computer literate. But it's okay. It's okay. I felt like I lost my profession. And what I wished is that the Department of Public Health could change their ways a little bit, but I'm going to start with me. A community helps each other, teaches each other, for without those qualities, you don't have a community. The Native Americans would never have made it if they didn't have a community mentality. And anyway, the people that stood by me, I'm very, very grateful. And for a few of our furry friends that stuck with me and showed me love. Even a fish, a betta fish, I'm grateful, brought me to my knees. Thank you.
Wow. I have to say thank you to both of you, Joan, Jane, Joan, for coming on today. You guys, I got to say, a joy, a pleasure, and an honor. Yeah, can you tell the lovely people out there how they can find you out on these interwebs?
Every social media that we're on, which is most all of them, it's Therapy Twins, one word. But if you make a mistake in Google or Safari, just Therapy Twins, try to go, under the hood, because basically we're going to share from under our hood, and that's where the book shows up. It's actually Under the Hood, How We Hotwired Our Brain, Calm the Fuck Down and Let That Shit Go is actually the title of the book. And it's ADHD friendly. It tells you quickly, basically the most, the easiest coping skills ever. You take something that helps you sleep, whether it's valerian root or an Ambien, press play for the positive affirmations or whatever you're looking for. It works while you sleep if you want to be a sloth. So yeah, Under the Hood, Therapy Twins, and all social media is just Therapy Twins. Thanks. That's about it, I think. You want our phone number? I'm joking. Because we have those too. It's on the internet. Apparently, my phone number is all over the internet.
Yes.
I prefer text. I prefer text.
There is a number out on the internet. I'm not too sure. Well, now I know. Yes, it is your number on the internet.
Is. Yes. It is. Actually, a client said to me, Joan, do you realize your phone number is on the internet? And I said, well, it's supposed to be. And she said, but that's your personal cell. And I said, well, yeah. And my business number. Like, I don't have two phones. Like, maybe you do, bitch. Maybe you have some money to have two phones, but hello. Anyway, yeah, that's it. Therapy twins. We've trademarked that because the physical therapists back then, when we trademarked it, they wanted therapy twins to be a trademark of a particular chair that helps people in physical therapy. And I didn't want them to have it, which wasn't very nice of me at the time. And we have it. So we're either the Rappy twins or therapy twins.
Fair enough. What I'll do, I'll put all of the information into the show notes, into the description. So yes, you can find the therapy twins out there.
You might not like what you find.
No, put it this way, if they've stuck with us up until this point, yeah, they know what they're getting into. That's what I yeah. And I'd like to say thank you to you, my friends, my life warriors, for sticking with us to the very end. Yes, please stay safe, stay well, be awesome, be excellent, be fantastic. Be all the positive bees you can be in this world and then some. And yeah, seek some therapy, my friends.
Yes, thank you.
And we are